Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Eachine QX105 Bat. It comes with an F303 flight controller, with an OSD, 10mm brushed motors inside. It comes with a micro buzzer, programmable LED, 600 TV line all-in-one camera, and 25mm VTX. It has a built-in receiver, 65mm props. The camera angle is adjustable. It comes with two 600 milliamp batteries. We get an extra set of props, camera tape, and a prop remover. Two extra motors. A USB charger, a balance lead, two pieces of Velcro for your batteries and one for the vehicle. An extra rubber band, and a full color instruction manual. Well, I have some bad news. This is yet again another review. I am disappointed to tell you all that the vehicle is disappointing, to say the least. Let's jump right into some of the flaws. First, out of the box, it's nearly unflyable. You have to actually be quite careful out of the box because the minimum throttle is so high that when you arm, this thing will probably take off if you're in air mode, and it will probably surprise you, and hard telling where it will end up. You'll do quite a bit of PID tuning, and I got to a point where I started getting there, but unfortunately I had to stop, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. I also found this connector on the motor was constantly coming out. Sometimes it would come out in flight, and that was quite an odd experience. I also broke mine. I broke all three of these little bits right up front here, and I used some super glue, which is actually held up better than the carbon fiber did, so that's a bit surprising. And I actually think that I need to give somebody credit. One of you had indicated that super glue would fix the carbon fiber quite fine. The final piece that you need to be aware of as far as faults goes is this receiver in here is not very good. The failsafe on it does not activate, and that can be terrible if you get out of range, which I'm not quite certain how far that range is. When I did my flying initially, because I did test it here on the bench for failsafe, as we all should for all of our vehicles, I found the failsafe didn't work. So what I did was I had my 12-year-old go out back with me, and he would activate air mode, and I would have this thing a hold of it nice and tight, and I'd get in the corners of the yard, and then he would activate air mode, which would cause the props to spin up, of course, and then he would turn off the remote, and we'd see what happens. When nothing happened, then we turn the remote back on, or I disconnect the battery, we would rebind up and go to the next far corner. So I was fairly certain that it was going to be fine in the yard, but outside of the space that you see in my backyard, I really can't tell you. And that's a risk. So you buy this thing, and then all of a sudden it just flies away. That would be a sad, sad, sad day. So I'm going to take the props off, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, I have our props off for safety. We'll go ahead and plug in the battery, and we will take a look. We get to see the lights. That's a good thing. There we go. There are our lights. And then I'm going to arm it. I'm going to hold it down here a little bit with my finger. Well, I can do it over here. And then I'm going to give it a bit of throttle. So she's running. Now I'm going to turn off the remote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nothing. So reconnects just fine, but that doesn't matter. By the time, if you get out of range, there's no running or catching this thing unless you are fast like a cheetah, I guess. So be very careful when you're flying in your spaces. It would be a good idea if you have one of these and you're out doing some flying, keep it very close, or do what I did and have a buddy or someone who can help you test the range so you know the limits of the receiver. I don't want to be all negative. That kind of always bothers me to just post these negative reviews, and we had one that was semi-negative with the Eachine 010S because the USB port didn't work on that one. So I also, outside of breaking this, eventually I had another crash and the camera dislodged and the voltage regulator stopped working. So I really couldn't fly it anymore with the stock camera, and I thought about swapping it out. And that just made me feel like this was an unfair review, because if I start replacing parts, then where do you stop to make something fly better? So I decided that I would stop at that point. The flight footage you see, I'll post what I've got. It's horrible. Maybe it'll give you a laugh. It just doesn't fly very well. I didn't get to the point where I got it. I started getting the tune in line, because where it started was really bad. And I also will show you a bit of the OSD right here. If you're not familiar with an OSD, they're really handy for keeping track of your battery and doing your PID tuning. You can do it right from the flight field. You don't have to have a laptop or anything out. So that can really speed up the process of tuning. And it didn't really do much for me in this case, because I spent so much time fetching it that by the time I got it back and got everything back in order, and then put another battery in it and did a little bit of tuning and a little bit more flying, I spent more time going and getting the vehicle than I did actually flying it. I just think, unfortunately, this particular vehicle, it's got a cool design frame. I do like that. That's positive. You know, it does look a little bit like a Bat. I really like the fact that they have an OSD, and the camera seems pretty decent. Whenever I have these, I oftentimes will take a zip tie and I'll glue it to the top plate and run it up, and then cut it off to where it's just slightly above. That way, if we land upside down, the zip tie will at the very least reduce the impact on the lobes, because these lobes, it doesn't take much force and then they get bent out of shape. Overall, I think this particular quad with these 10mm motors needs 2S. It needs 2S for a couple of reasons. One, it needs the weight, because with those large props on here, this, even at the point I had it, it felt very floaty, like I couldn't get it down out of the air. I had to pretty much chop throttle all the way down to get it down out of the air, so we need a little bit more weight. And then to counter that, we need a little bit more thrust. I think running 1S on 10mm motors is not a good choice. Well, I apologize, guys, but let's go ahead and run the flight footage. If you have any comments or questions, unfortunately, I won't be able to, if you're saying, well, what are your PIDs? They're not much use to you, because I didn't get very far in the PID tuning, and therefore I'm going to refer you on. Check out other videos. Maybe some other people had better luck with theirs and it survived longer and they were able to get a better tune out of it. In my particular case, this particular vehicle just had enough faults to where I didn't feel it was worth putting a lot more time into. And I've got other things to get to. Hopefully, if you're new to the channel, you understand that I'm not a terrible pilot like you see in the flight footage. And if you are new to the channel, please watch a few other videos. I think you'll find that I'm at least a decent pilot, and that the video that you're going to see of the flight isn't normal for product reviews that I might do. Okay, everyone, thanks for watching, and enjoy the flight.